Hello everybody, this is Capus Games, and welcome back to War Thunder 101 with a look at the Ground Forces tech trees with BR main lineups. Main lineups being groups of multiple tanks that are clustered together at the same BR or very similar BR that can be used in a very effective lineup to go into battle if all grinded out, as using for grind purposes mostly. So of course, every faction starts, nation starts with a 1.0 BR reserve tank or multiple. Well, M2A4, LVTA1, uh, Panzer 3B, Panzer 35T, so forth, so forth. Like there are quite a lot of them, but they act as a 1.0 BR matchup, and they get there are pretty often new players entering the game, playing with the reserve tanks or 1.0 BR tanks overall. You can safely get up to 1.7 to 2.0 with pretty high likelihood at just getting into that 1.0 matchmaker. So there are a lot of factions actually with this this mostly 1.3 lineup, starting with the Americans, mainly with the Stuarts and the M13 as the AA, as well as the M2 as their main lineup. Germany has that same lineup with the Panzer IIs, the Flak Panzer, Panzer IV-C, as well as the Panzer TA. Even some premiums here to support it even. It's actually pretty ridiculous how many 1.0, 1.3s there are on the German line. Russians have the BT-7, T-26-4, T-60, Su-51, and the 2AAs to support this lineup. And Britons actually do not have this lineup. Well, they have two tanks of the Daimler and the 813, but they're not really worth it. Japan, however, does have this lineup, the Kani, Chiha, Kami, Type 94. And Haigo Commander, Rogo even are options, but not really advisable because they're not really that much worth as a premium. Then we got the 1.3 lineup for the French as well. So as you guys can see, it's just a really popular lineup. Next up, again, like there's not really much going on at 1.7, so we're instantly jumping to 2.0 with the Japanese. 2.0 is a pretty popular lineup with 3 vehicles right here, which is a good option, and you have 1.7 AA to support you as well. It's a pretty solid lineup to get grinding as well. However, you are a very high likelihood into getting into the next big cluster lineup, 2.3. 2.3 starts out with the Americans with the M5A1, M22, M8, M16 GMC, and M75 M3 GMC, which are, by the way, especially M5. I got actually, this is a free talisman, but it's a really amazing tank, guys. Rapid rate of fire and all the good stuff. M8, those are really, this is actually like the same hull, but with a different turret with a 75mm short barrel howitzer, similar to the Panzer IV treats. German has it with the Sturmpanzer II, a Panzer III-G, F1 Panzer IV, Stuk A, and 2.0 Panzer AT Chapar, Panzer II-F, Panzer IV-E. They're all worth of that lineup. Even a Panzer II-H, which is currently unavailable for buying, but you could be obtaining it with a Steam pack, but that one is currently off shop and not sure why, but let's hope it returns because it's an amazing pack and it's great value. For only like $10 you get this premium and this one. However, there's a great pack, great value and whatnot. So Russians have this lineup too with T70, T80, T28, SIS-30, Su-76M, and an SPA, and even 3 different premiums, even though one of them is trash, similar to the BM13N. They're both are trash, but there are 2 viable premiums to actually support it. And then the Britons do come with a pretty decent lineup for it. Crusader Mark II, Valentine Mark I, this is AA, But just the Crusader and Valentine are overall solid options, and they can just join up that lineup. And Japan does have the 2.3 as well, with the Chihei and Honi tree to support the 2.0 lineup as an expansion on it. It does pretty well. However, the French do not have this lineup. So next up is 2.7, which starts with the Russians. So with Russians, got the T28E, got the Setu T37, which is a really good one, and T50. And T50 is like an especially really good tank. Definitely a must-have after you get the 1.3 lineup, get the 2.7 lineup, or go and support it with the 2.3s, because especially Sis-30 is a really good tank, as well with a really powerful gun. And next up on that same lineup is the British with the 2.7 Crusader 3, Matilda Mark II, and the AC Mark II AA. Matilda, not great gun, but pretty good armor, and Crusader's pretty good mobility and gun, but pretty crappy armor in return. They're kind of opposite from each other. This one is slow but heavy armor. This one is fast but weak armor, and this one is better gun. This one is worse gun. And for 2.7, there's only really that lineup, and then we can instantly go to 3.0 with the Valentine Mark 9 and 11, Treach Current Carrier, and Churchill Mark 1. Pretty decent lineup, but you're very often gonna pull into 3.3, so that's where also putting the extension of the Archer, Chroma Mark 5, and the Chroma RP3. Although RP3 is another rocket variant, and rockets in this game are just not really viable on tanks. Well, on planes they're actually really good, but on tanks they're not really that great. But it is a premium that you can use as a grinder until you can either afford better ones. Well, this one's actually cheaper, but you most likely want to get one of these bundle ones because those are the two next key lineups. But we're gonna go to 3.3 on the American first with the M24, M4A1, and the 105. This was the M15. And this one does not really have a premium to support it, but there's a bit of a downside. Germans come with the Panzer IV F2, Panzer III L and M, Mortar 3H, the 37 flak, and as well as the Panzer III N as a premium. Russians do not have this lineup, nor do the British really have it again, like only that expansion, but Japanese do have the 3.3 lineup with 4 tanks, with one of them SPG, medium tank, and light tank. And the Italians even have this one with the Lioncello. They have 3 response on just the Lioncello, so medium tank, about as powerful as an F2, Panzer IV, like, not really that dangerous, so. France, I have the M4A1, AMX13, and as well as this AA truck, and well, 2.7 with this gun, but you can, this one strictly alone is a better gun, and this one is also a better gun, so overall, more or less a backup for these 2 tanks. And then we jump to 3.7. The Americans do get a little bit of that action with the M4A5, M10, and M4. But the main lineup sit at, for example, Germans. They come with the Stuk 3F, Stuk 42G, Stuk 42G, Whirlwind, Panzer 4G. Funny enough, the Whirlwind is actually probably the most damage among this one because there's enough penetration to deal with most stuff at its tier, and its rapid fire cannon shred through almost anything. Does have a premium rocket launcher unit, but again, rocket launchers aren't really that great in this game, so you can partially ignore it. Oh well, unless you really want to have rockets, then sure, have fun, but I have warned you guys beforehand. Let's keep it at that. Next up is 3.7 lineup. 3.3, 3.7, T34, 9041, and 42. KV1L11 as well. SU122. This is 12, 39K, 29K BTR. They're all users for the 3.7 lineup. I mean, okay, you do have kind of a 3.3 lineup actually right here. 3 tanks, but 1 SPG, One medium tank and one AA is not always enough to support one, but the 3.7 lineup does come with a premium to support it. So after this, I'm gonna in short run up like some of the lineup premiums that are really worth getting it in general. But next is the 3.7 lineup for the British with the Cromwell 1, the Crusader AA Mark II, Sherman 2, and again 3.3 to back it up. And Japanese doesn't have this lineup. Italian doesn't have this lineup. France does also not really have this lineup. Okay, again it has the M10, but that's it. Then as 3.7 get 4.0 first. There's a small premium lineup with 2 premium vehicles and a flag, and the Stuk 3G. This is a 4.0 lineup, and if you're lucky, you might get pulled down to 4.3, but you're also just as likely to get pulled up to 4.3 or even 4.7. So onto that, the 4.3 lineup is the Dicker Max, Panzer 4H. Actually, Panzer 4G is actually also a 4.0 lineup, so that's I guess a bonus point there. Then the 4.3, KV2 even. Just the Dicker Max, Panzer 4H, and especially KV2 are just a solid lineup. And support against the Russian 4.3 lineup with the KV2 SIS-5, 1S, T-34 57, KV2 9039, ASU 57. Syst 43 to support it as AA. That's just such a big lineup, such a present lineup that a lot of other tanks can get pulled into there. So we do have one 4.3 tank on and the Calliope, but Calliope is really expensive. But there's only 2 tanks really there. And American line is at 4.7. British is at 4.7. You do get there are 2 4.0s, but not really any lineup there. 4.3 does exist on the Japanese line, but also 4.7 to 3.7. Actually, the Japanese won't have a solid lineup until 6.7. They have really like a cheesy, open matchup there. 4.0 URL 44 is here, but again, no 4.3. But because of the presence of the huge 4.3 lineup on the Russians, this is actually a pretty solid matchmaker at 4.3. And then we go to the next lineup, 4.7. 4.7, again, the Americans. We have the 76 Sherman M4A1, the normal 75 Jumbo, as well as the M6A1 as a backup, and a Cobra King Premium. Jumbo and 76 Shermans are such a good combo. Jumbo has all the armor, and the Sherman is the big gun. If you just team made out of those 2 tanks alone is a really solid team to definitely watch out for. And after that, with the Germans, it doesn't really have a solid 4.7 lineup. You get the Oswind and Hetzer and Jagdpanzer 4, but that's it. Russians, also other than the Su-85 and the ZSU-37, you don't really have a lineup at 4.7 either. Okay, you're gonna get the T-34 57 mod 1943, which would make it just enough for a lineup and to just hop along together with your 4.3s on that 5.7 matchmaker, because 4.7 is our overall solid matchmaker. Also because of the British, they come along with the 4.7 Sherman Firefly, Churchill Mark 7, Avenger, and Scorpion. 2 of them are basic. 3 of them are like, well, 2 are medium tanks with a 70 with a powerful gun. One of them is a light tank with the same powerful gun, and the other one is just a slow moving bunker. Really. Again, you get Cheeto late to fight this lineup, but again, cheese lineup on there. 4.7, I guess, does exist on the like the French with the M4A4 SA50, the Jumbo again, as well as the M4A1 FL10. The SA-50 gun is a really good gun, similar to the 76mm guns on the Sherman, and you got the jumbo line setup as well. That's just a good combo. Um, Note that as always, when the maximum BR spread between the highest ranking and the lowest ranking tanks in the match is always 1.0 straight. So 3.7 can get into 4.7, 4.7 into 5.7, and so on. So the next lineup is 5.3 with United States and Russians only, really. But that's just because of a huge percent of the M18 Hellcat, as well as the Black Cat. It's just such a popular vehicle that a lot of matches get built with 5.3, especially because they're often facing the Russians with the 5.3 T-34-85, IS-1, 5.0 KV-85, SU-152, SU-37 can support it, but KV-2 SIS-6, SU-100Y, and M4A276 are also like three premiums to support this lineup. So 5.3 is also a really popular lineup. You also got a PD76B, even though it's not really that much of a great tank. ISU 152 as well. There's just so many solid options at 5.3. I might actually get myself a KV2 or SU 100Y later as the premium I'm gonna use for grinding, because these one are a bit expensive other than the KV122. They're just basically an IS-1-ish or IS-2 similar style. But this is another really popular lineup. Other than those two, I mean, we get the 5.3 Panzer 470 Nashorn, Brummbär, and KV-1B on the German lineup. Get the Comet and AC-4 on the British. Actually, the British also have a Crusader AA on the 4.7 lineup, by the way, but it's a tier 4 and it's kind of hard to unlock. Japan 5.3. Okay, you can get the M4A376 and Chiri 2, and that's it. Again, cheese cheese lineups on Japanese guys. It's pretty bad, and there is literally no 5.3 on the French, so it's pretty hard. But then we got the 5.7, another really popular lineup, with the 76 Jumbo, which is basically Jumbo's armor with the gun of the 76 Sherman combined into one. It's just it's a really scary thing to face. Every single time I see it, I'm just scared. It's got a T25. Actually, there's also the 76 5.7, but it's pretty much the only other thing supporting the M18, and you're almost only gonna run M18. So, oh well. T25, 76 Jumbo. You also have the M19 AA for both lineups, but also the M36 motor carriage. That's a really solid combo, just 3 vehicles, but it is enough. Because 5.7 is one of the most popular lineups, especially in Germany. Germans get the Waffenträger, Sturer Emil, the Tiger H1, Tiger E, Panther D, Oswind as AA support, Tiger P, and Panzer 4/70. They have such a huge lineup here that's just like impossible to ignore it. I mean, the Waffenträger is basically a Tiger 2 gun strapped on a glass cannon. Sturer Mill is basically a low velocity mouse gun. Yes, a mouse gun, guys. At 5.7 instead of 7.7, but a lower velocity on just a derp hold down gun platform. Dark Red ones don't really need explaining. Benford D is more mobile than the Tigers and have similar armor but weaker gun. But just this lineup is so popular with the Tigers and the Porsche Tiger that it's just a key thing, and that it will get you matchmaked really quickly. 5.7 is also supported with at the Russians with the normal T-34-85, IS-2, ISU 122, and KV 122 as the and T-34-85E as premiums to support it. It's a really solid lineup, and definitely one I suggest having. 5.7 also exists on the British with the Challenger and Centurion Mark 1. Um, Other than that, really too much. Japanese do not have this lineup other than they have Techno 6. Um, Italy doesn't have this either. France does come with the ARL 44 to fight this lineup, but also not really that much either. Then we get a bit of an awkward lineup. It's the only lineup at this BIR, the 6.0 lineup of the French with the MX-13, AMX M4, and Serial Rain. Because of this, you actually see a lot of 5.3 6.0 or 5.3 6.3 matchmakers, just because every time the French join the 5.7, it joins the 5.7 matchmaker almost every time and pulls it up just a little bit just to get the 4.7 save. Because of that, there's currently a meta of 1.0 to 2.0, 2.3 to 3.3, 3.7 to 4.7, 5.3 to 6.3, 6.7 to 7.7. That's basically the current lineups, and then everything after that is just a mixed match of everything up to 9.3, pretty much. So after the 6.0 lineup, we go on to 6.3 first, with the United States coming with the M26 Pershing as pretty much the only non-premium, but it does have the T28 and Super Hellcat as premiums, and as well as the M41A1 Walker Bulldog to support it as a slightly lower BR, and of course the M19 is just AA, it's just solid AA, it's not bad or good. Sigma 3 does exist on the Germans for the Tiger 2P as 3 6.0 Panthers actually, so that's actually also a solid 6.0 lineup I guess, but you got the 6.3 Yak Panther, Ferdinand, Befilzag and Yak Panther as well. So there's just a lot of 6.3s and 6.0 going on actually on the Germans as well. Then going for the Russians, we got the T44, IS2 Mod 1944, ASU 85, ISU 122S, SU 100, SU 122P, T44 122. This is a huge list here at 6.3, guys. So you can actually quite solidly expect that thing. 6.3 doesn't really exist other than the charioteer on the British, so you can pretty much ignore it. Japanese as the SDA, M41 Walker Bulldog, and the Howie prototype, I guess. That's the only way you really want to get it, but 6.7 is really the only way to line that up. The Italian got the M26 Pershing premium. This is an M26 Pershing, but just premium earnings. But you won't be able to research anything. So this is only you only really use these if you want to put some Japanese Italian planes into tank RB. So the French don't have this lineup much other than the Lorraine 40T, and that's really it. But then we go to 6.7, another one key matchmaking lineup and multiple factions. So Americans M56, Scorpion, T92, M50 Antos. Nothing here, but the Super Pershing, T34, D29, and M26E1 and M26D99, as well as T114 and the M42 Duster. It's just a huge line here. So guys, coming 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 normal ones, and 7, 8, 9, 10 different vehicles to choose from at the 6.7 lineup in total. Germans also get their fair share with the Tiger 2H and Coelian RU251 Tiger 2H SLA 16, which is basically just an upgrade and Tiger 2, but with slightly more armor on the sides of the turret and a better engine. That's really the only difference between those two. But the Tiger 2H is a really popular tank, so that's why it's used. Because it's used so much, there's actually a prominent matchmaker right here with those 6.7s. Russians do not really have this 6.7 lineup other than the SU-100P. Their lineup is a 7.3 and 7.0 more or less. The Britons actually do have their 6.7 lineup with the Centurion Mark III, Caernarfon, which is an FE4202 is an absolute monster of a tank. Tortoise, FE4005, and the SDRV81, which is a Centurion Mark 1, but with some missiles attached to it. And because of this huge lineup here as well, there's a lot of people that actually get into 6.7. Luckily, the Japanese do have a 6.7 lineup with the Type 60 SBRG, which is a twin-barreled anti-tank hunter. Type 61, which is getting pretty close to a main battle tank, but it is pretty much a Pershing right now. M42 Duster as well. And that lineup, because there are already so many 6.7 available, often has priority. So the French do get the AMX-13 and the AMX-50, but not really that much creative lineup there. So next is 7.0, and again Americans have the share here. The M46 with the M46 Tiger is the premium variant, and the T-32 and T-95. Because of current matchmaker, 7.0 has a really big chance to get up-tiered. So, it's not really that much of a great lineup in my opinion, but it's there, so you can definitely use it. So, Germany does have some 7.0s with the Yak Panther, the Yak Tiger, Panther 2, Tiger 105, and the Yak Panzer 45. So, we've got a very big Tiger with a very big gun. The Yak Tiger, again, super heavy armor and basically the mouse gun on there. And the Panther 2, which has basically just a Tiger 2 gun on a slightly reworked chassis. It's more mobile, it's a quicker turret, and I think it also actually has a rangefinder. So it's a way more modern tank than the Tiger 2 is, but it still allows the relatively old gun. Russians, 7.0, okay, you do get the T-44-100 and the Object 906, but other than that, there's not really that much of a great lineup. The British do have the 7.0 lineup with the Centurion Mark 10, the Vickers MBT, and the Conway. Bit of a durable lineup, but again, it's there. Japanese have the Hori Production and the Type 60ATM, which aren't that great, but they get you through most of the time. 7 though only have the AMX 1390 on the French line, but that's really it. So we're going right through to 7.3. With 7.3 on the American, you only have the M47, and because that's not really a lineup. Just period. It's not really a good lineup. 7.3, get the M47 again, but again, not really a lineup. But then we get to the Russians. They get the IS-3, the SU-122-54, Object 268, IS-6. Especially the IX-6 is popular premium tank. T4 and just the IS lineups here is just a popular lineup. 7.3. And well, British got the Conqueror to kind of get there, but it's not great. Japanese, no to speak of. And well, for 7.3 is actually a decent line for the French with the MX-30, MX-54, MX-30 DCA, and the AMX-30 1972. So these are pretty much modern tanks, but because they're relatively weak armor, they can be put at 7.3. So next lineup is 7.7. 7.7, we do get the 7.7 M48A1 and M60. So the M103 and the Mega 3 as the United States lineup. 7.7 is only really the mouse on the Germans, but it comes by occasionally by the occasional mouse player. As for T54 at 3 different variants, even that is an instant lineup on its own, just those 3 T54s on its own. But the CSU 57-2 and Object 120 make it a very solid lineup to use. And a definite matchmaker warning. I mean, Falcon, you're never gonna use it on its own, of course, so there's not really a lineup there. And 7.7 STB1. It's kind of a main tank, but not really at the same time. So 7.7 can be ignored there. Trying to get the lineup, and here, not really anything well to speak of either. So I'm just gonna go over to the max tiers now because everything at 8. Okay, you can go 8.0 straight matchup with T95 A1 and 163, but it's not really good. So you're most likely looking at 8.3 here, and with these 3 tanks, but everything above it is going to be pulled together, and so most likely the 8.3s, 8.7, 9.0, and 9.3 are all going to be your main lineup at the end. So it caps at 9.3. They do have an advantage in that, because the Germans only get a 9.0. Do have the multiple 8.3s, but not enough to really make a lineup, and everything else there is really got pulled up into 9.0, 9.3. So I might as well make that your entire loadout. The Russians got 9.3 as well, and 8.0 2 tanks, not really worth it. So 8.3 and everything again, everything above 8.3 is gonna be separate. You get the Chieftain Mark III as 8.0 single tank, not really supportable either. We only really have to type 87 and it types 74. It's kind of sucky lineup again. And here we got up to 9.0 with the MX-13 Hot, but also got the B2 Brennus AMX-30 variant and the AMX-30 B2, which I guess those 3 tanks have form a lineup together, but you definitely have to give it to definitely the USSR and the USA. Those have the strongest lineup. So just taking a look at those lineups. Overall, there's some premiums that I can value highly, I would say, are the M18 Black Cat at 5.3, the Cobra King at 4.7, Calliope, if you want to, if you're going to combine them, these two, and pretty much any 6.7 is a really good viable. Otherwise, T29 is I just recently got it, but I can really speak highly of it because I really got some good matches. Okay, your Panzer 2H, your really popular one. KV2, it's a good one as well. Porsche Tiger, otherwise the Tiger 2 or RU251. On the here, I'd say the SMK to support your lineup at 3.7. Otherwise, you're gonna look at SU100Y or KV266. KV122 is also a option. SU122P, D44-122 are options. I wouldn't get the T34-100 because it misses its lineup. But on 7.3, definitely get IS-6. And 7.7, it's not really good of a lineup, but you can go for IS-4M. Actually, I forget what I said. Actually, Object 120, definitely an option. Bit of a fail there. SDRV and Firefly, those are the options. AC Mark 4, just because of how horrible a lineup it is. I wouldn't get it. Here, Hori prototype, only really in a Chinu 2. And of course, what they start other than choosing these two on the Italians. And here we got the 4.7, 6.7 as an alternative, but mainly the 4.7 here. as a premium is what you want to get in your lineup. And yeah, just overall, if you're taking okay, you can take up to 2.0 and be pretty safe into a starter. 2.3 gets up to match with 3.3 again, and 3.7 gets up to 4.7. And then 5.3 to 6.3, 6.7 to 7.7, and 8.0 basically gets to 9.0 and up and whatever not. That's an utter mess up there. But there are also an alternative 1.3 to 2.3, 2.7 to 3.7, and then you get 4.3, 5.3, and then you get the 5.7 to 6.7 matchup. And that's a painful matchup for 5.7s because you really notice the difference, especially between even just a 6.3 T44. Just the standard T44. If you're just fighting it as a 5.7, it really hurts because of the armor on these heavier tanks, especially in the higher tiers and the Russians. But yeah, I hope this clears up a little bit. So again, in short, 7.7s can only get up to 6.7 or 8.7. Again, there's a maximum deviation of 1 point BR. And they have been discussing on making it smaller, however, because of the player base, we cannot really make it smaller, so because you guys are really like up tier, down tier. Well, that's basically just the issue of because the relatively small player base of this game, even though how big of a game and how some of the really popular gaming YouTubers like Fly Daily, of course, like 500,000 subscribers, it's pretty popular. But yeah, even though that the game isn't really that big, and because of that, you do have to take a little bit of that, just a little bit of for the bigger matchmaking spread, just a little bit for granted, really. Um, I hope you guys won't really get mad for those ones, but yeah, that's it. I hope you guys all enjoyed watching as always, and I'll catch you guys all later. Bye, guys.